Before we begin, thank you everyone for the constant support in my last video. I truly appreciate it. We're going to be ranking some characters from popular media and see their contribution to just overall men's awareness when it comes to mental health and how they overcome that. So starting off, we have Spider-Man. And obviously Spider-Man's going to be at the top of the list. I would say he's a reliable character. We all view him as this friendly hero. You know, he prioritizes his family, his neighborhood. Good moral judgment. Protects the weak. We love him. He's iconic. Spider-Man can't go wrong. Oof. Okay. Omni-Man. Omni-Man is the GOAT. Omni-Man is the man. I think Omni-Man is legendary. Okay, so Omni-Man is from Invincible, from those that don't know. He is very controversial. This is a very controversial pick, especially for like the first one of the legendaries. Harmed humanity overall very badly. Mistreated his family. But the redemption he has later on in the series, it's quite admirable. He makes up his relationship with his family. He understands his son better than anyone. He shows positive male masculinity in accepting that his ideology and the way he viewed the world was wrong, even though it was innate in him since a child, since he didn't really have a choice. That's all he knew. But to reject that and learn from those mistakes is honestly pretty amazing. So I think he's just legendary. I think he's an amazing guy now. He will do anything to protect those he cares about. He understands that he's not always in the right headspace and the right ideology, and he accepts that he needed to grow. That's amazing. It can't get any better than that. Okay, now we have Patrick from SpongeBob. Patrick is interesting. I don't think there's a lot to his character, to be fair. I think he's just like a gimmick. I think he just exists. Yeah, let's be real. He just exists. There's nothing going on in that head. That poor man. He lives under a rock. He's chilling. You know. He has an easy life. He's not really thinking about all these deep things happening around him or how he can grow as a person. He's chilling. He's Patrick. Let him be Patrick. Alright, next we have Buzz Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear is interesting. So I'm actually not the biggest fan of him. I've never quite found something that I found in his character trait that I was like, okay, you know what? He's like,
you are a sad, strange little man.
I think he's almost amazing, even though I personally don't like it that much. Because there are a lot of traits in his story and his character where, you know, he realizes he's not as special as he thought originally he was. And that's powerful. It's coming to an understanding that, you know, you're not on top of the world. Sometimes the world's gonna kick back, and then you gotta be resilient. You gotta learn from that and grow and realize there's always room for improvement. So that part of his character I really enjoy, and for that reason I think he's almost amazing. He's not as iconic as Spider-Man, but you know, he's on his way. He's on his way. Okay, next we have Superman, our favorite Kryptonian. Kind of. Not really. But anyways.
Funny. I thought it'd be bigger.
Superman. Superman is interesting. I don't like him that much, to be honest. I think he's average. I think how they view him and how he portrays men as these powerful, unstoppable figures, just, you know, their biggest personality trait is their strength, and how they're just perceived as almost as a godlike entity.
Pretty boring, actually.
I've never really connected with his character that much. He has some key elements in his story, you know, obviously born in a different planet, coming to understand a different community and having people accept you, and like learning how to be in someone else's world essentially from the get-go, and how to connect with people. But even though he has all these issues, I feel like it was pretty innate in him, and everyone just kind of accepted and viewed him as amazing. You obviously have like villains like Lex Luthor that are his arch enemies, but aside from that, there's not really a lot of substance to him in terms of like what we're talking about in this video. So I think he's pretty average. Then we have Jake from Adventure Time. Where do I place him? He's definitely silly. He's supportive of his friend. Do I think there's a lot of substance in his portrayal when talking about men? No, I think he just kind of exists. I think the portrayal is very happy, very fun, whimsical, but it's more on the simplistic side in my opinion. So I think he just kind of exists. Now we're talking about just a bunch of craziness, a bunch of trauma, almost like a nihilistic way of seeing the world.
Say when.
BoJack. I think BoJack is very much a complex character. And when talking about mental health and men, their portrayal on men, he comes to mind for sure. The horse comes to mind when talking about men's mental health. Hello. I think he's iconic. Yeah, I think he's iconic. He has a very, almost like a victim mentality when seeing the world. He understands that he has issues. He understands he sees the world messed up, but there's still the bright side to his character that wants to be better and wants to make better decisions, even though that doesn't necessarily shine through in what he actually does. But the understanding of trying to be a better person, I think it's a good sentiment, and I enjoy it. And it's very humane, funny enough, for being a horse. It feels very humane, and you know he messes up, and he understands he messes it up, and trying to be better sometimes leads to even worse mistakes. So I think there's a lot of beauty in that, and it doesn't come across as toxic masculinity per se to me. It's more like genuine that, you know, sometimes life is hard and your decisions that you make don't always lead to the right
Well, that
path.
was another in a long series of
Definitely
regrettable life choices.
All right, next we have, I don't remember who this is. I think this is Little Mermaid, the father, King Trident? Is it Trident or Trident? I don't remember. But I think he's average. I think he's average. Yeah, there's definitely important parts to his development that I would want to mention. I think he starts off, you know, with Little Mermaid. He starts off being a very controlling father figure. He doesn't really listen to her or her concerns. Throughout the story, he evolves into someone that cares for the people around him and cares for those people to reach, you know, their ultimate goals or what makes them happy. So it's very beautiful in that regard, but that seems to be pretty much it with him. So I think that's pretty much average. Like if I was to personally make male figures and make the dynamic between the father and daughter, or like the father and child dynamic, it would kind of be that. So to me, that feels pretty average, how that portrayal would go. And next we have Tony.
Genius billionaire playboy.
Tony's interesting. I love Tony's character. He's one of my favorite superheroes. But when talking about this specific video and this specific topic about representation, I don't think he has the healthiest representation with men. I think he's almost amazing.
This is where you zip it, all right? The
Yeah,
adult is
I feel like if he would have had a better redemption arc, because if anyone doesn't know, in the comics and everything, there are very important traits to his character. He's, you know, a playboy, very much involved with like drinking and all these like party stuff. And while he does evolve a little bit, he doesn't fully. And those traits are always there in other storylines. That's like almost like a key factor to his storyline instead of growing and learning from them. So to me, that's what hinders him from being an amazing character.
This is where you zip it, all right? The adult is talking.
Okay. Next we have Mario, our favorite Italian. Favorite princess saving Italian. I think Mario. How do I feel about Mario? I think he just kind of exists. I don't think there's a lot going on there.
Oh no, not this loser.
Character. You know, he has clear motives, he has clear goals. He just wants his princess, he wants to save her. It's pretty much it. In fact, I would even argue he probably has more downsides than good. it's almost obsessive the way he wants to be this protagonist. He's always constantly saving Peach. Even when new media showcases Peach as being more like independent, he still wants to have that feeling of, you know, I'm the hero, which is cute, and I love it, and I love the message, but for the sake of this video, there's not a lot going on there. Alright, next we have Handsome Jack from the Borderlands series, and I'm a huge fan of Borderlands. I love Handsome Jack. He's a bit of an asshole, but that's kind of why we all love him. I would say he's almost amazing. Yeah, I enjoy his portrayal. Because even though he's a villain and even though he makes very big mistakes, he does seem to care about his family somewhat. Is it hypocritical and the way he go about it completely wrong? 100%. And is he looking out only for himself most of the time? Yeah, 1 billion%. But I think they showcased genuine feelings towards, you know, the actions that he did. And to me, I think that's what makes him a good character. And it's almost like you have this complex villain where if things would have been a little bit different, you could see them as turning out a different way, or almost having a redemption arc if things would have turned a little bit different. But they unfortunately don't. He ends up, you know, dying. But he's still a cool character. And I enjoyed how they represent the toxicity and ego and power-hungry ideas that some men can carry. Next we have Captain America. Captain America is interesting because his whole character revolves around leadership, about hope, about overcoming struggles, about having like powerful will. But I think he's almost like Superman, where he's inherently a little bit too perfect and there's not really a lot of room for downfall. His character has always been linked to a very good person. Well, not always. There's definitely media, especially in comics where so many storylines take place. But for the most part, his characters has like this vibe of always doing what's right. And to me, that's a little bit basic and boring. So I would say average. There's not a lot to go based off of what we're given with him. But definitely a very good character. Rick and Morty, Rick specifically, I enjoy his growth throughout. When you first meet the character, he's kind of a dick, and you see all these toxic traits to his personality. But then you really learn to like him, and you really learn to see how he treats Morty, and how protective and how much he cares about him. So I think he's almost amazing. Almost amazing or iconic? No, I think he's almost amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, because there are definitely things that he does to other people that are not, you know, people he cares about that are very messed up. The whole show has a lot of philosophical viewpoints that you can take on it that I find interesting. But I think almost amazing is good. Okay, now we have Dipper from Gravity Falls. Where do I place him? I enjoy his coming of age story. I enjoy how he takes all the craziness and mysteries that happen throughout his life and throughout his family, and he grows from it. He takes strides to becoming a better person. He doesn't give in to the cruelty of these events, and in fact, he always battles against them. So I think that's pretty amazing. I think that's how men, especially teens coming of age, should be portrayed. I think almost amazing. Not iconic enough as the rest for me to place him there, but almost amazing. Ooh, okay, Batman. I'm a huge fan of Batman. I think he's a legend. I think Batman's a legend. There's just so much involved with his stories. There's so much involved with his character. You obviously have all the trauma he experienced as a kid, but then you also understand that, especially with nemesis that he has in comics, that if he were to take all those events that happen in him and kind of give in into them, not fight towards being a better person, you could understand why he would be a villain, why he would be like so sadistic in how he does things. But instead, he uses all that trauma as a kid and focuses on being a better person each day and saving lives and having strict moral codes to follow.
I won't kill
So
you.
I like that. I like that. I think there's a lot of control and a lot of masculinity in overall having more control over yourself and your actions. And that speaks very powerful when talking about, you know, male representation. Is he a little bit edgy? Yeah, 100%. But
Got him!
the character overall is very cool. Okay, we have Zuko. Zuko, oh, okay. Instant legend. That is, if anyone's watched the TV show, and if you haven't, you're weird. But Avatar: The Last Airbender was amazing. Zuko, the character of Zuko, honestly, it was one that I didn't really like at the beginning. I remember inherently hating on him, in fact. I thought he was very boring.
That's rough,
he was
buddy.
a stereotypical villain. There wasn't a lot of depth there. But I came to grow him by the end of the series. They really showcased the dynamic that he had with his family, which I thought was amazing. You saw he wasn't an inherent prodigy like his sister.
Yes.
And he had to work for everything he had, and he had to work twice as hard, in fact. So definitely very interesting points. And then you obviously have his whole redemption arc. You have the redemption arc with people he hurt in the past, with people he hasn't valued as much. And then you also see the dynamic with even other characters in the show that have always been by his side that he's taken for granted, like his uncle. And I think that's amazing. That whole approach, if I were to take a character that I was making and I would want them to have a redemption arc, I would 100% use Zuko's as a guideline, because I think it was just beautifully done. Definitely legend. Okay, next we have Link from Zelda. A fun character. Does he portray men in a light that's impactful? No, I think he just kind of exists. I think his character has always revolved around, you know, being courageous and strength, but not necessarily about vulnerability. Not the most communicative protagonist, for sure. Very interesting and a fun character, but I don't think there's much there to analyze aside from naturally being more courageous. That's kind of the only thing he has going for him. It's kind of like Captain America in a way, where it's just inherently that's like their thing. And then when you step out of that thing, it's kind of like, okay, you know, you've taken such a big part of their character out. There's no room for them to become anything else but that. So I think he just exists. I'm gonna get so much hate for that one. I have a feeling. Okay. Next is Deadpool. Deadpool. Love the character. So much fun. Love reading his comics. Love watching the movies. Do I think he has a significant portrayal when it comes to men in media? No. I honestly... Wait, why can't he go there? I'm confused. Oh, there's like another... LOL. I honestly don't think he serves much purpose.
I'm touching myself tonight.
And I think there's important parts of his characters for sure, don't get me wrong. But they kind of get overshadowed by the continuous humor that everyone tries to portray his character. And not necessarily because it's a bad thing, it's inherently an important part of who he is. But then what that does is that it overshadows any significance in personal growth, because, you know, comedy and joke and humor is always going to be a highlighted point when talking about him. So definitely interesting, definitely fun. But outside of that, it's not really a whole lot of representation.
So dark.
And breaking the fourth wall is cool and all, but, you know, I guess maybe you can link that to some mental disorders, and then you can talk about the complexities of having to deal with that and feeling, almost out of your body, having to deal with that. But then I think he's just pushing it, and you can do that in a way where it doesn't have to be constantly joked about. Because in all the storylines that I've seen with, the resolutions are always a joke and humor. So every personal growth that he takes is just gonna be overshadowed by humor. Okay, then we have Hercules, Disney adaptation. How do I feel about him? I think he's average. Yeah, I think he's average. I think he's like an average male representation. You know, aiming for strength. Has some family issues, and there's a lot of complexity there. But aside from that, pretty basic in how the storyline used him and how his character is portrayed. And from the beginning, he was very, very mentally stable as well. He obviously had to overcome some things, but it's not necessarily like, you know, he changed a whole lot. He just became buffer. Next we have Peter Griffin from Family Guy. This guy isn't. He's a jerk. He's a jerk, that's for sure.
Whoa!
I think he's no purpose at all. If I was making a video on who to not be or who to not represent male figures, Peter Griffin would be on top of that list. Undoubtedly. He is cancerous. He's a terrible, terrible person. A terrible man, terrible human. He treats his wife like crap. He treats his children even worse. Again, the whole show, it's obviously filled with humor. It's supposed to be funny, but there definitely has been other cases where you've been able to still be funny while showing some progression in characters. And Peter Griffin, I can comfortably say he had no progression whatsoever. He just kind of ended. In fact, I think later on, if you compare the beginning of the season Family Guy to the later seasons, you really see how much of a jerk and how much of a just a terrible human being he really is. It's just kind of funny to see. But yeah, definitely don't look up to that guy. That's for sure. Okay, next we have Kratos from God of War. And Kratos was interesting because I honestly didn't really like him that much at first either. He's very stereotypical and very, you know, strength driven. Could take up any task he was given. He would rise above any challenge. So to me, it was a little bit boring. But I did change my mind later on when you got to see more of him being a father and how he wanted to be a better father and how he had to overcome the struggles of that. So for that alone, like if it was pre having a kid and pre having all those traits that linked him to being a father, I think I would have just put just exist. Now I think almost amazing, honestly. Yeah. I think it's powerful to show these strong characters and also show the vulnerability that they have to their characters. Because then if you're just automatically very strong and automatically can handle anything in life, to me it's just boring. But now that they gave him a little bit more complexity and more vulnerability and the struggles of actually keeping up to a standard, which is being a father, then he just instantly became way more interesting to me. Okay, next we have Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. I enjoy the vengeance storyline he has, but aside from that, there's not really much there. I feel like he's like a worse Zuko. Yeah, I think it just does exist. I feel like the storyline, the vengeance storyline with his character could have been taken somewhere, but instead it's just overhauled everything about him. It's just instantly was the only thing he cared about. The only personal growth he had revolved around that only. When you think of him, you think of like, vengeful, hateful, but that kind of just, it's the only thing his character was on for. So yeah, he's like a worse Zuko. Definitely had potential to take that somewhere. But yeah, to me personally, I don't think it's really impactful. Right, next we have Joker. Where do I place Joker? I think no purpose at all. Yeah, I think no purpose whatsoever. It would have been, I would have placed him in a different spot if his story and his character had any other significance aside from just being crazy or making very cruel crimes for the sake of being like edgy. If there was an actual purpose and an actual description towards like why he acted and why he was the way he was, he would have been higher. And if even better, if they came with any conclusion, you know, any hints that he could possibly change and used, you know, the way he thought or the way he was to be a better person. Kind of like Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn has a lot of very toxic signs, but then you empathize with her because you see why she acts the way she does. Her storyline suggests towards why, you know, her mental state is how it is. For Joker, however, he's just kind of crazy for the sake of being crazy. They have to portray a very clear difference between him and Batman. So that's a very clear sign of, very straightforward way of them doing. So yeah, no, I think he's just no purpose at all. And in the sake of this environment, in the sake of this topic we're talking about, I don't think he serves any purpose. Okay, next we have Avatar: The Last Airbender, Iroh. You're going right up with your nephew.
Nothing more than hot leaf juice.
That's where you belong, Iroh. Do I even need to say anything about Iroh? He's amazing. He's a great portrayal of masculinity. Filled with wisdom, he understands the issues of others and he doesn't judge. He shows vulnerability and he doesn't shame it. He gives advice. He has a bad past because a lot of people tend to forget how destructive his past was, but then all the events that happened in his life kind of changed them. So he took that and he learned and he grew up, and now he focused his life on helping others. I think he's a very, very well made character. Specifically talking about men representation, you always see the vulnerable side with him. They never shy away from showing, you know, he has emotions, he has feelings, but then they also showcase strength. So he has a very good balance of strength and vulnerability. Definitely legend, for sure. We have Sonic the Hedgehog. I think he just kind of exists, to be honest. And I never really liked Sonic that much, so he's not really a fan of mine. I'm not a fan of his. Yeah, I've always found it kind of boring, to be honest. But definitely better than Mario, that's for sure. No, Mario's better. It's a me, Mario. Anyways, all right, next we have Mortal Kombat, Johnny Cage. Here's Johnny. I think Johnny's cool-ish. Do I think he has a lot of personal growth and a lot of well-done representation? Yes-ish. Yeah, I would say yeah. I'm gonna put him at almost amazing. Here's why. I like how in the most recent games they showcase the family dynamic between him, Sonya, and Cassie Cage. And especially when you get to see him battling and seeing his other younger self, you really see the personal growth. You see how he went from this egotistical character to a more compassionate, understanding person. So to me, that's very well done, solid growth and well done representation for men. And especially also talks about just coming of age as well. You understand, you become slowly based on prior experience to become a better person, a better man. So I like it. I like the story. All right, next we have Robin from Teen Titan. Specifically Teen Titans, because that's the version I like the most. I think Robin is iconic. I love Robin. Yeah, I think Robin is iconic. It's cool what they did in the show with him. You obviously see struggles. Oh my god, there's like a bug. You obviously see struggles that he's faced and he's overcome. He's very much that character that was forced to learn that being a leader wasn't an easy thing. So he understood the flaws that he had and went above and beyond to be better at them. And to me, that was powerful, and I enjoyed that a whole lot, especially from a younger, men's perspective. Very, very nice. All right, next we have Shrek. I think Shrek is iconic too. Come on, look at that face. That face is iconic. I think Shrek is that case where it's fully accepting who you are, and that's powerful for men to understand, and for that to be portrayed from a men's perspective. Just fully coming to terms with enjoying who you are in life and what your interests are, and just overall you as a person. And Shrek embodies that and very well. There are also other things that happen within his story and his character that those ideals that he hold, that he was comfortable in himself, were challenged. So I enjoy seeing that he was still able to be a flawed character while having those core ideas be a staple to who he is. And to me, that's a very iconic character. All right, lastly, we have Joel from The Last of Us. Legend? No, I don't think he's legend. Is he legend? No, I don't think he's legend. I think almost amazing. I think he's almost amazing. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things within his character that I enjoy. I love the resilience. I love that he learned from mistakes he's made. I love that he still made mistakes, and those mistakes were still questionable, but they always came from a place of love and from a place that he was trying to protect those he cared about. He was just, his heart was in the right place, but unfortunately some of the choices that he made were very questionable. And then depending on who you ask, they might give you, more diverse responses. But me personally, I enjoyed him. I think he could have been more iconic if those points that I made were emphasized a little bit more. If they were emphasized more in that, the consequences from his actions ultimately led to a much positive, outcome. And if you know the story, then you can definitely view it that way, that they did. But me personally, I would have done things a little bit different with his character. That would have just bumped him up, in my opinion, to a more like iconic status. But yeah, but that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy to share this video, especially when talking about men's mental health awareness. And I always say, be kind to others. You never know the struggles that someone may carry within. But these characters, for example, are a great reminder that complexity that happens with just being human. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed. And like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.